Dzień dobry, privet, bonjour, hola, good morning, assalamu alaikum, ciao. Hope you're doing well. This is Ken at 10, as usual, coming to you live from Southwest London and talking to you about property as we always do. Hope you're doing well. Here in Norbury, it's a little bit overcast. It was a little bit rainy this morning, just a little bit of what we call spitting, just a very, very light patter on the windscreen as I was coming into work today, but still looking fairly fine, but weirdly, the trees seem to be losing their leaves already. I don't think the actual trees know, or many of us do, what's going on with the weather. But I hope you're looking forward to a good bank holiday weekend. You know, a lot of people in the property market expect and anticipate that a bank holiday weekend is going to be a really busy time for property. Our experience is that the summer bank holidays are usually particularly quiet in our area as families collect up their things, head coastal or head out for family and enjoy their family for the last part really before the children go back to school. And then, of course, as we've spoken many a times about, it starts to get busy in September. September window is quite a narrow one, so you need to make sure you get on the market as early as possible in September if you want the best chance of achieving a reasonably priced sale. And then finding a property you're more likely to find in September than you are in October, November or December. So it's a really good time to get on the market, get sold and get looking. But because it's such a finite window where the spring season's quite a long one, you need to get a wriggle on. So if you're thinking of doing it, get your agent round early, get prepared, get the photos done and get ready for that September release. You will find a lot more comes available in September. Not loads, because of course we are in the middle of the strangest time and we're heading for a catastrophic time, aren't we, over the winter, no doubt, with the fuel bills and interest rates and inflation and Ukraine and everything else. It's quite a dark time, and hopefully we can shine a little bit of light on that and say that as far as the market's concerned, at least the housing market, things are business as usual. You know, one thing about rising house prices, they don't always need to be going meteoric for it to be a good time for you to move. In fact, for most people, especially if you're upgrading, there is a very strong argument that the best time to upgrade is when the market falls back a bit. If you look at it this way, if you're selling at 500 to buy at 800,000 and the market drops 10%, fine, you lose 50,000 off of what you're selling. No, you lose 80,000 off of what you're buying. So you're 30,000 in front when the market falls. Look at that the other way. That £800,000 house goes away from you, stretches away from you by 10%. If the market goes up by 10%, then it stretches away by 80,000, where yours only rises by 50,000 on a like-for-like basis. So there are good reasons why in a static or a market that has dropped slightly, that it's a good time to move. And actually, if you've got equity, I always say there is an element of neutrality about the move, because for most of us, we're not actually cashing in, are we? We're not saying, okay, let's take that money and then go somewhere else and not spend it, you know, retire out to Cancun or whatever, and not buy anywhere. For most of us, it means selling and buying. So what we're actually doing, if you think about it, is we're taking a tranche of money that we have invested in this location and we're lifting it out and we're putting it into a new location. And if you're moving on a like-for-like basis, then whether a market goes up 10% or down 10%, it's neutral for you. If you're moving up market, then of course the market is forever coming away from you as the market rises. So there is an element of good news when there's a flatter market, and I expect it to be a flatter market over the winter. The headlines today, BBC News is saying the house sales peaked in July, but buyers are cautious. Banks and surveyors are down valuing amid fears of house price falls. That's in the Telegraph. And, we are finding that more and more people now are starting to have issues with down valuation. And that's because surveyors are a little bit cautious. You know, when the market's flying and it's rising and there's anticipated rises of 5 and 10%, then surveyors will be more confident. When surveyors are more confident, they're less likely to down value. When they're less likely to down value, it causes less problems in a chain. Sometimes the down valuations are ridiculous, and sometimes they're just unreasonable. Quite often we find these days, because surveyors have to be panelled, those surveyors come from entirely different areas. They've never seen your area before. Here in Norbury, sometimes we see surveyors and they don't know the area. So they ask us for comparables and then they go up the road and ask other agents for comparables. Sometimes they get the right ones. Sometimes they form an opinion which is way away from reality. You know, we had one in Tarcroft Road recently where there was a down valuation of 50,000, totally unreasonable. We showed many, many reasons why the valuation was wrong. The surveyor wasn't for turning, and the buyer actually ended up going to a different lender where the mortgage was valued completely normally. And it just goes to show the problem is that what you're actually saying, if you challenge a down valuation, is you're saying that surveyor was wrong, and nobody likes to be told they're wrong, do they? So good luck to you if that does happen. Remember, what you need to do is draw comparable evidence, facts, That's facts. Other properties that have sold in a location, you might need to do a bit of homework, call around local agents to see what they've sold recently, because it's not always going to be available data on the internet for you. It might well be that sales that have just happened have yet to register and go through to land registry. So it can take a bit of legwork, a bit of homework to go through and speak to agents, find out what they've sold and how they compare the properties that they compare sold with the one that you've sold, in order to try and defend against that down valuation. But yeah, it's a problem. It tends to be a problem in a flat market, particularly in a falling market. So let's hope it doesn't get too bad. But so far, we're not talking about 1 in 2. For us, we're talking about 1 in 30. But then we expect that it will get worse as the market gets a little bit slower through the winter. Apparently this winter as well, nearly 3/4 of pubs don't expect to survive the winter. What's going to happen to those pubs? Well, they're going to be converted into residential quite probably. That seems to be the way, doesn't it? Certainly in our area, lots of pubs that used to be thriving little centres of the community have now changed into different use classes, quite often going to flats, because that's where the money is to be made, especially if they're on the A23 corridor or the A24 corridor, or actually any main corridor into London. There seems to be a bit of a carte blanche to do what you like, really, in terms of planning. Planning seems to be much more lax than it used to be, and it does mean that many of these vacant commercial buildings, and I must be honest, in some respects, I think when you see a big vacant building, it's been vacant for a long time, wouldn't it be better to bring that back into use when we've got such an acute housing shortage? So yeah, we're bound to see a few more pubs come up for sale, and those turn into residential over the course of the winter, I think, as well. As far as the market's concerned, what's it doing? Where's it headed? What's happening? Well, we're still getting calls from sellers. We're still getting calls from buyers. There's still a reasonable amount of confidence around. Do people have to be careful and cautious? Yes, of course, both in buying and selling. But remember, just because the market's flatter doesn't make it a bad time for you to move. You need to look at the overall picture, not just where you're selling from, and rather than focus microscopically on exactly what price you're achieving, look at not what you're achieving, but question whether you can buy at a realistic level where you want to be and what the differential is. That's the key thing. If the differential is in your favor, then it's the time to move. And of course, if it's right for you and your family, that's the thing that you should start with. Question number 1, is this the right time for myself and my family to move? Question number 2, is the differential acceptable to us? Can we buy what we want to buy for the difference in price between what we're selling and what's available in the area we want to be in? Or if it's a neutral move, then it doesn't really matter, provided you have equity. If the market's up 100,000 on your house and the other one, or down 100,000, well, the move is neutral anyway. All you're doing is moving your pot of cash from one area to another. So quite often I find that when you talk these things out with people, they don't realize that the best time to move can be when the market is flat, or indeed if it's fallen off a little bit. So do talk to us if you're thinking about moving locally, or in fact, if you want a bit of advice and you're moving nationally, then we're here for you. We've got your back. Thanks for watching today. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition. Till then, stay safe, look after yourselves. If you can, your family and friends. Ciao.